Here we are in a room.
In separate rooms, we should also say.
A bunch of self-identifying young women.
And non-binaries and those not conforming to the patriarchal concept of gender.
Being women.
And non-binaries and those not conforming to the patriarchal concept.
And you know how the woman's song goes.
We are strong, we are brave, we are born leaders, we are fierce, we are not to be underestimated, we are enough, we are beautiful, we are powerful, we are unstoppable, we are incredible, we are talented.
Blah, we are flipping bored.
There's not a chorus that could communicate our discontent sufficiently.
We want to cause some mischief.
We want to dance on bar tops, with or without our tops on.
We want to rob a bank and get away with it, so we wouldn't have to sit here day after day thinking about which grant to apply for, which job might last us past a recession.
We want to rip down the walls, hiding hallways of hapless politicians, and just take over, start over, bulldoze their basicness into a renewable energy resource to light up our new world alongside the raging fires that fuel us and drain us and burn us and char us.
We may be enough, but we've had enough of strong and brave and beautiful being enough.
We want to be criminals.
Wait, I didn't agree to that.
We want to break every single law laid down to make life limp.
We could be good. We could be the best. And it would not pass the power test. Because look who we have in Westminster. Look at who is taking the piss out of our laws and our good, clean thoughts every single day.
Nah. If that's how we have to roll to run things, we're game. We always have been.
Women are not just mums and daughters and sisters.
We
are motherfuckers too, and we're coming for you.
Hello?
We are the bored women of the rooms.
Joining you from our rooms in 2021. Hello, I'm Leslie Anderson and welcome to this special news broadcast. On rooms, did you know that rooms date back to at least 2200 BC?
Before coronavirus?
Excavations in Santorini have shown early Minoan structures with clearly defined rooms. But if you believe that a room is a tomb,
a room for your deathbed, basically.
Your forever room.
then they've been doing those in Ireland since 3600 BC.
Before coronavirus.
And then, of course, globally.
So basically, there have been a lot of rooms.
And a lot of women.
An estimated 54 billion women have existed on this planet, since the beginning of time. And there's around 3.5 billion women on the planet right now.
And each of them goes into a room at some point, even if it's not a room of one's own.
Rooms have always had women in them.
Thank you for listening to this special broadcast. I'm Leslie Anderson, and I'll see you on the flip side.
Imagine, there was probably never a room that a woman hasn't been inside. Even the ones they still aren't allowed inside, like some in London's Pall Mall members clubs.
They probably still clean them.
Or deliver something to them.
Or pick someone up from one of them.
Unless it is a whole guarded peninsula, like Main Ethos in Greece, where there are thousands of rooms for thousands of men across hundreds of kilometers. But women are completely banned. Though, so are female animals. Neither can come within 500 meters of the coast.
Unless the female animal's a cat, pussies are okay because they catch the many mice that would otherwise eat all the food. The plus side of this no female animal except cats thing is that it makes being vegan very easy.
This is Greece, by the way, not some faraway place that gets some good old European funding to tackle its gender discrimination policies.
The only women who have entered the Mount Athos Peninsula have done so illegally. Starving raiders in the Greek Civil War who stole flocks that were allowed to roam there during the conflict.
Dressing as a man got a few in.
And that resulted in the maximum 12-month prison penalty for any criminal woman who might try it.
Criminal women. In prison, some of them. Some of them not. Some of them in prison for crimes they didn't commit. Or did commit.
But if they did, then 80% of those crimes are non-violent and mostly shoplifting, theft, or fraud offences.
The very thing the people at the top of our power structures, be it in business or politics, are experts at.
So, stealing without the protection of the law is pretty much what they're locked in those rooms for. Away from families and children and jobs and hobbies and loves. Rooms where they're needed and that do not cost the public £37,543 a year to lock up.
Some criminal women have never been caught by the law, and strangely or not so strangely, haven't been caught by the global imagination industry either.
Not giving much thought, not many books, hardly any films, comparatively anyway. Think about Al Capone, the Craze, Pablo Escobar, criminals more famous than fairy tales.
We're not including serial killers here, though all these lot had bodies that added up, for sure.
But it's more about the empire they built, illegally, against the norms of society, but in the same way the normalised empire builders did too, just one was posh and the other wasn't.
The murder parts were to keep being able to commit these crimes they committed without being stopped or caught or killed themselves.
Which is not an excuse. They're still killers, but they're criminals first, not the other way around, which is maybe semantics, but it's the bit we're interested in. Where are the women like this?
Not in the top 10 Googles for famous criminals, that's for sure.
Bonnie gets a mention. Clyde adjacent, of course, which isn't insignificant.
That the only women criminals that are household names are the ones who worked out their criminal crossword worlds with their intimate male partners. Those with husbands, boyfriends, lovers. The men who are really in charge, of course.
These women might be allowed to get famous for being so naive as to fall for the persuasive, perverted powers of a man, bent against society's norms, rather than for any ingenuity or lawless ferocity of their own.
We just think, and yeah, maybe it's too much to hours spent on Zooms, in our rooms, drinking rosé. But our thoughts on this are simply that
if we don't recognise the bad shit, the fact that women since time immemorial have been motherfuckers too.
For money.
For power.
For fame. And without any moral awakening at the end.
Without any baby to protect or wrong to avenge. Though, is that really possible for a woman in the end?
Well, if we don't at least recognise the first bit about women being motherfuckers too,
then we can't possibly get recognised for the normal, boring things that we do. Like,
What did I do during the lockdown? I drank a lot of tea.
Go back first.
For some reason, I remember spending a lot of time in the bathroom. I remember that I smoked a lot. Mostly I did nothing. Do you mind?
So, we want to raise our glasses to some criminal women.
we have cocktail makers,
Mixologists, as we like to be called.
Making.
mixing cocktails to raise to these criminal women.
And by drinking them down, we hope to get drunk.
And less bored.
Yes, but also to remember they were there.
We are here.
And in the rooms of power, criminals roam, stealing from the people, doing much worse things than what these women did.
So with every sip,
Which does not have to be alcoholic.
We hope you remember this too.
Griselda Blanco by Olivia Davis. So Griselda Blanco was the major cocaine dealer in Miami, becoming one of the biggest drug dealers in the Western Hemisphere in the 1970s and 80s. She invented the motorbike drive-by killing but used any methadone to get rid of her enemies. That seemed the slightest hindrance. 250 such people, legend has it, including 3 of her ex-husbands. She got one of them and 6 of his bodyguards with an Uzi in a nightclub car park after he betrayed her on a deal. She spent 19 years in American prisons, 23 hours in a 4x4 room. That's 131,765 hours in a room before being deported back to her original home of Colombia, where she was shot in the street, ironically by the very drive-by bike killing she invented. She was carrying 150 pounds worth of meat from the butchers and a Bible under her arm. Have I missed anything?
what was she doing with all the meat? Feasting to remember those she'd killed?
Or to forget them, blood blanked by blood.
Offering sacrifices to the statues of Catholicism, like repenting flesh with flesh. Tonight, we will feast, pray to the Virgin Mary for her blessing, and we will sing the names of those we've killed. It will be a long song. Maybe she was cooking for the homeless, like distributing pork chops and sirloin steaks to the streets as she preached her favourite passages from Genesis.
But see, there we go, giving her a redemptive ending, when men who've killed so many for their cocaine thrones need none, do they? So no, she stays there, dead on the stone by rival gangs.
Covered with meat she was going to eat herself.
Or feed to the young men she paid to bathe in rose water.
Using the Bible to make them pledge allegiance to her until death.
Yes.
It tastes good.
I guess we are next.
Number 2. One metal chalice.
Ancient Egypt.
The place beer was invented. 200 ml of brown ale.
And an ancient Egyptian woman called Nesmud, a leader of tomb robberies in the Valley of Kings in the 20th dynasty. Honey?
Honey.
Yeah, maybe a teaspoon of honey.
Yeah, a teaspoon of honey. Yeah. Not much else is known.
But we can suppose that as this match is known, she was caught and it was recorded.
Perhaps she faced the same sentencing as other women who were caught for conspiracies against the powerful men who kept them in harem.
Yeah, totally. Nose and ears cut off, or as a special treat, an invitation to commit suicide. It was a time of minimal crime.
Supposedly. Or things seen as crime now weren't then. Who can say?
I mean, they did consider tomb raiding the very worst of crime, higher than murder even, to plunder the sacred resting room of the greats.
So it is likely she faced death?
Death, decapitation, drowning, being burned alive.
50 ml of extra smoky whiskey. Now, add some ice and stir the mixture gently for 10 seconds.
Before this, though, Nesmud led the way through those limestone tombs, marble room after marble room, masterful at trickery, architecturally telepathic, and mapped mazes subfacing to her strong eyes and arms, holding a lamp in one and removing the stone with another, to successfully and stealthily
Eventually.
steal the gold and emerald of the kings and queens.
Until, of course, the day she got caught and recorded.
Yeah, allowing us to know all this.
Which begs the question, how many other women criminals of history are untold just because they were too fucking good at it? Plus, we could probably add all queens to the criminal category too, depending on your politics, which we don't have enough alcohol to discuss today, so nothing to fear.
We will leave them alone for now, and maybe allow time to judge or atone their ways of accumulating their wealth, whether it was stolen back by a woman like Nesmud or not.
Bottoms up.
Number 3, Qing Shi, Madame Qing. Terrorized the China Seas in the 1800s. Has appeared in bit parts on screen, including Pirates of the Caribbean. But here she's solo, leading alone as she did back then, with 40,000 men, women and children underneath her unforgiving wing.
The most successful pirate in all of history. Never caught. Fought the British, the Portuguese and the Qing dynasty.
Her rules were strict and cruel, though sometimes pretty good, it could be said. No pirate was to steal from any of the villages that sold them supplies. Pirates who raped female captives were beheaded.
Yes, but then consensual sex meant death for both parties. Legs wrapped around cannonballs, thrown overboard. Any disobeying at all of any rules meant your heads would be chopped off too. So, you know.
She started her career as a sex worker, and at 26 married a notorious pirate, had 2 kids. But when her husband died 5 years later, She took over the whole enterprise and expanded it to be the force that only the Portuguese could get to surrender years later.
When Ching hung up her eye patch, opened a brothel and married her adoptive son, having 2 kids with him in her 40s. We've been told so many lies, haven't we?
What did she do with all that money, made on the back of beheaded necks and young girls having sex with whoever could pay?
She must have made sure she gave plenty of it to her family. They were all around her bed at home when she died, crying for this criminal woman. Their mother, their friend. What would they spend it on? This one is strong.
Huh. I feel fine. I, Marion Boyd, have 9 children who survived childhood in 19th century Scotland. I think that's pretty good going. Maybe it was luck, or maybe it was the double power of Protestant prayer from my husband, James Hamilton, Earl of Abercorn, who did a lot of Irish colonizing for King James. My Roman Catholic council, unusual pairing at the time. Maybe that's why. As thanks for the 9 surviving, I'd promised my priests I'd raise my kids Catholic.
Blind eyes were given to this wish until her husband died. Then she was excommunicated from the Church of Scotland. Locked up in the Edinburgh toll booth cells for 2 years, as an uncharged criminal, awaiting charges for believing in the same God, but differently.
2 years it took for the laws to decide there wasn't a charge to be made. The cells were needed for witches and whatnots. So she was put on house arrest at home in West Lothian, so that she could not sneak out and see Catholic priests, who had to keep things under wraps because they themselves were not under house arrest. She died soon after she arrived.
A criminal woman without being charged of a crime. Detention without trial. It's still all the rage right now, of course. I hope that for the time Marion couldn't leave the house, she found a room with a window. overlooking the green slopes and spotted orchids of Duntarvey, maybe asking a remaining child to pick some to put in a vase so she could see them, even when it got dark outside, with their pink or purple spots and stripes on their three-lobed lips.
Perhaps she imagined walking in the sharp, fresh air without a guard, and when she knew she could never do so again.
She struck the cone-shaped cluster of spiked flowers to her heart and made its chambers split apart.
To escape room after room with nowhere to go, to finally flow freely through Scottish hills and castle walls.
But who believes in ghosts anyway?
So, finally, death. The Black Widow, as Linda Calvi has been nicknamed. East London born and bred, a loving 1950s Stepney childhood, working on the Roman road market selling wigs with her mother till she fell in love with a bank robber, married him and lived happily till Linda was tipped into getaway driving after her husband was shot dead by police during a botched bank robbery job. And soon after, she was the one with the guns out and doing the getting, not just the getting away. Vodka, lime and soda was her favourite drink after a hard day at work, bursting through heavy doors to demand bags filled with cash and rings and all things sellable. She tells it better in her book. Written last year after 18 and a half years in a prison cell for murdering her then husband, apparently. She denies it, the murder of him. Not her life of crime, of leading armed robberies around London, of being proposed to by the men who did what she did, but whose names go down in history. Charlie Bronson, Reggie Cray. Saying no thanks. Doing things her way. This drink's for you. Sip it slow. The Black Widow.
And so what about us now?
You?
Still in our rooms.
Still unsure of what we can do that's really a crime or not really a crime in the eyes of ethics, only politics, or a crime that would get some of us punished and others of us celebrated.
Yep.
But at least now we are a bit pissed or high on halal fizzy Haribo.
Or the meditative melody of proper green tea.
Whatever is your fix, your thing. We have been here to bring you what we brought you: dubious drink recipes and a gaze.
A bored woman in a room gazed on other women who were doomed by the sort of world we say we don't want, and yet we still build.
Who were mostly, except our Scott obviously, not very nice women.
If you add everything up, but then whoever does. It's confusing as fuck, but we've still got stuff to celebrate, right? Like puppies,
strolls on the beach,
cigarettes,
comfort food,
stratonimbus clouds,
emo girls,
this being water,
travel.
So we celebrate through the confusion
to find a way through to some sort of truth.
We hope we told it how we could.
Pass it on. Slengivar.
We are strong, we are brave, we are born leaders, we are fierce, we are not to be underestimated, we are enough, we are beautiful, we are powerful, we are unstoppable, we are incredible.